Jake Thompson was the kind of man who believed in the foundations of family. At 35, he prided himself on being a trustworthy husband to Laura and a devoted father to their two children, ages 8 and 6. A blue-collar worker at a manufacturing plant, he worked long hours to provide a modest yet comfortable living. While life had its ups and downs, Jake found solace in the predictability of the mundane: school pickups, weekend soccer games, and the warmth of a home filled with love. But beneath the surface of this seemingly stable life, dark clouds loomed. The cracks in the facade began to appear when Jake noticed subtle changes in Laura. Late-night texts, secretive whispers on the phone, and unexpected absences. He chose to dismiss his suspicions as paranoia, believing the best of his wife. Yet, late one Tuesday night, while he was folding laundry, Jake discovered a text that shattered his world. "Can't wait to see you tonight. Just you and me." A chill ran down his spine, punctuated by an ache in his gut. The words echoed painfully in his mind as he understood the implications of that message. The following day, a corporate event was scheduled at the local community center. Jake had purchased tickets with the intention of celebrating his achievements at work with his colleagues and his wife. He had always introduced Laura with pride as the glue of their family. But deep down, a storm brewed. Instead of confronting Laura, Jake opted for a strategy of careful observation. Dressed sharply in a suit that felt foreign on him, he arrived at the event early. Anxiety coiled in his chest as he scanned the room, searching for Laura. When she finally showed up arm in arm with another man, Mark Henderson, Jake's close friend and colleague, the room shifted. Jake's heart plummeted as he witnessed the chemistry between them. Laughter, shared glances, the intimate way Laura leaned in close, flicking her hair over her shoulder. Realization struck like thunder. They didn't just have a tight bond. They had crossed into the realm of intimate closeness. Something dark and primal surged within Jake. The trust had been obliterated, replaced by a hunger for the truth that could no longer be restrained. As the night unfolded, he moved closer, lurking like a shadow. The laughter, once vibrant, felt like a cruel mockery. Every shared moment was a dagger aimed at his heart. His thoughts spiraled. Who was this man, and how could he do this to Jake, a man he once considered brotherly? Every chuckle from Laura landed in his gut like a punch. Finally, the moment came. Laura, glowing and radiant, turned her gaze toward him. Her smile faltered as she recognized the storm brewing in his eyes. "Jake!" she exclaimed, her voice laced with disbelief. Jake stepped into the light, determination coursing through his veins. "Laura," he replied sharply, voice steady despite the chaos inside. "Can we talk? Alone." With the eyes of hundreds watching, he led her away from the gathering, away from the murmurs and whispers, into a quieter corner. It was a confrontation steeped in tension, overwhelming as it was liberating. "Who is he?" Jake demanded, his voice low but piercing. Laura's expression shifted, confusion morphing into defensiveness. But Jake interrupted, pulling out his phone, evidence in hand. Screenshots of flirtatious texts, messages that spoke of a life beyond their marriage. "What are you talking about?" she said, but Jake saw the fear in her eyes. She struggled to maintain her composure, but the smile that once lit her face with warmth was now a mask of denial. "Don't give me that," Jake barked. "You thought I wouldn't find out? Is this the life you wanted with him? Look at what you've done." So many moments of vulnerability flickered through Jake's mind. Moments he had sacrificed for love, only to have his heart pounded into the ground by betrayal. The public confrontation sent ripples through the gathering. Colleagues shopping for snacks glanced over, a hushed intrigue swelling. Mark approached, tension thickening the air. "What's going on, Jake?" he asked, the feigned innocence reeking of deceit. "This is what's going on," Jake shouted, waving his phone as Laura's facade crumbled. "Laura's been cheating, and you're at the center of it." Gasps erupted like fireworks, yet Laura stood frozen, lack of defense visible in her eyes. The shame flooding her cheeks mirrored the dread in Mark's. "This isn't fair," she shot back, desperately grasping at remnants of dignity. I'm what?" Jake cut her off, satisfaction bubbling in his chest as he saw Mark's facade begin to shatter. A husband who worked to support you? A father who sacrificed his dreams for your future? With calculated precision, Jake laid bare their financial situation. Mortgages, debts, all of it. He painted a picture of how he had always put Laura first, providing a life she could ruin with mere whimsy. Tears threatened to fall as Jake confronted the reality. You thought you could betray me and walk away unscathed? Jake, please. Laura's pleas dissolved into the hum of disbelief from their onlookers, the shame wrapping around her closely, like the fabric of her party dress. Jake turned toward the whispers of those who had gathered, eyes blazing. This is what infidelity looks like. This is what happens when you trust the wrong people. As Mark's demeanor shifted from shock to fear, the tide of public support turned irrevocably towards Jake. In that moment, he saw the very foundation of his life shift. No longer the victim, he stood powerfully restored, on the precipice of reclaiming what was lost. As the mood soured, whispers of betrayal wound through the gathering of friends turned witnesses. At that moment, Jake felt the weight of empowerment. The rage began melting into resolve. Jake felt the electrifying energy of the crowd around him, a turbulence that promised his long-awaited vengeance. Laura's face grew paler with every passing second, her polished veneer cracking under the pressure of exposure. But the sight of Mark made the anger bubble within Jake once more. The man who had deceived him stood with a veneer of disbelief, and Jake thrived in his anguish. Do you really think you can just take everything I've built? Jake growled, looking at his supposed friend, whose reputation had been intertwined with his for years. You think I can't fight back? Every glimmer of camaraderie that once existed between them had been obliterated, not just by Laura's betrayal, but by Mark's involvement in the intricate web of lies. This is more than just a night at a social gathering. This is about integrity, loyalty, and trust. Laura, struggling to maintain control, blurted out excuses. Jake, we can fix this. It was a mistake, a moment of weakness. The desperation in her voice resonated through the gathering. But instead of retreating, Jake pressed forward. A mistake? He repeated incredulously. A mistake is forgetting to take out the trash, Laura. What you did is treachery. You've taken everything I ever believed in and thrown it into the gutter. Empowered by his own outrage, he turned to the crowd again. Everyone, this is not just about my pain, but ours as a community. When one of us lies, we all suffer. Mark has taken my trust, my friendship, and my home, and shredded it to pieces. This isn't just betrayal of one man, but a betrayal of the bond we've all created. The audience was riveted. Whispers intensified, and even skeptics began to recoil from the couple, once regarded as model partners. Nothing felt more intoxicating than being the voice of reason in a storm of chaos. Jake's pulse echoed in his ears, each beat a reminder of his power. Mark, trying to salvage his pride, stepped forward. Jake, this is not what it looks like. It was a moment of weakness. Why destroy everything over a silly fling? Silence, Jake shot back, with the chilling authority of a masterful predator cornering its prey. What you call a silly fling has cost me not just financial turmoil, but the very core of my family. That's not so silly to me. At that moment, Laura's composure collapsed completely. The mask of the devoted wife had slipped. Her true self, vulnerable and panicked, emerged. The tears flowed freely now, pooling at the edges of her mascara-smudged cheeks. Yeah, just please, we can work this out. I love you. Love. The word bounced off Jake like a ricochet. He had poured his heart into this relationship, only to watch Laura squander it in the arms of a man he once deemed trustworthy. Love was a precious stone she had chosen to toss into the abyss, and now it was too late for apologies. Love? Jake echoed, each syllable dripping with venom. What you two share is nothing but deceit masquerading as intimacy. You stripped away every sense of security and trust for fleeting pleasure. You think this love can withstand the light of day? He stepped back slightly, letting the tension swell. This was no longer just about an affair. It was a revelation, a cleansing of betrayal. With a flick of his wrist, he gestured to the crowd. "Ladies and gentlemen, let it be known. Laura and Mark are no longer the people you thought them to be." The audience collectively inhaled, a realization washing over them. The shift was palpable. Loyalty was now a currency that had been squandered. "From this moment, I will fight. I will pull every thread that weaves us together apart until they are nothing but dust in the wind." Like tumbleweeds in a barren desert, he'd let them scatter. Jake's internal transformation propelled him into action. This wasn't merely emotional retaliation, but a calculated assault. In the days that followed, Jake set a series of plans into motion. He consulted a lawyer, armed himself with evidence, and meticulously gathered proof of Laura's betrayal: financial records, texts, and digital correspondences. He spent countless nights poring over their shared accounts, reconciling discrepancies, and unveiling a trail of financial exploitation that left him seething. Word began to spread. Friends, colleagues, and acquaintances began to pull away from Laura and Mark as the news penetrated the gossip grapevine like a virus. Social media became a harbinger of public shaming. Our interactions had been built on invisible trust. Jake's voice echoed from hushed corners into open air. It couldn't be unknotted without consequence. Meanwhile, Jake doubled down on his work. He immersed himself in projects, focusing intently on his craft, gaining admiration and promotions that echoed throughout the plant. His colleagues were drawn to his resilience, watching as he transformed from a victim into a champion of resolve. Friends he hadn't seen in years reached out, drawn back by the unraveling of Laura and Mark's faux narratives. Jake utilized every bond, rebuilding alliances that fortified his resolve. Each connection served as a reminder he was not alone and would not let this betrayal define him. Then the day finally arrived when he stood in court, his courtroom of justice, where the stakes soared above the stratosphere. Jake watched as Laura took her seat on the opposite side, flanked by a table of expensive lawyers, those who thought they could hide the ashes of her deceit behind closed doors. The judge glanced at her, eyebrows raised with a sense of disbelief. The truth wanted to pour forth. With evidence in hand, Jake stood assertively to voice his story, each word punctuated with intention, slicing through the silence. "I'm here today not only as a husband betrayed, but as a man robbed of his dignity, his trust, and family essence," he declared, commanding the room as if orchestrating a symphony of honesty. He laid bare their financial destruction, the documents detailing Laura's theft of family funds, and Mark's hand in it all. He revealed how she had taken liberties with their joint accounts while scheming with Mark. He recalled nights spent in the dark, choking on betrayal, and moments of joy where the shadow of infidelity lurked just beyond reach. "You can't possibly imagine how it feels to work tirelessly for a family and find emptiness in return," Jake continued, his voice rising with conviction. "For every moment she spent pretending to be my partner, she was plotting how to destroy everything I cherished." As their lawyer paled, Laura's carefully composed defenses crumbled once more. The audience watched in rapt attention as the truth unraveled, and the inevitable fallout became all-consuming. The courtroom was electric. The tension wrapped around Jake like a shroud, but he would not falter. He had transformed from a husband gutted by betrayal to a man on a mission to reclaim his dignity. With every word he spoke, he peeled back layers of lies that had shielded Laura for far too long. Her expression morphed from confusion to anger, a mounting fire fueled by desperation. "Isn't it ironic, Laura?" Jake pressed, locking his gaze onto hers, his voice carrying through the silent courtroom. "You spent years in our home pretending to nurture love and family, while behind closed doors you were nurturing a snake, a betrayal." Laura's face reddened, emotions swirling within her that she struggled to contain. This was a moment of collective accountability. Jake wasn't just reclaiming his life, he was dismantling the illusion of domestic harmony that Laura and Mark had built on deceit. The judge listened intently, occasionally lifting her brow, seemingly more concerned with Laura's evasive demeanor than with Jake's emotional outpouring. "Your Honor, this isn't merely about money," Jake said, visibly gaining momentum. "This is about shattered trust and the responsibility that comes with marriage. Laura chose to destroy my faith in love, in partnership, and in our family unit," he stated forcefully. He held up evidence, screenshots of financial transactions, damning messages between Laura and Mark, each one a dagger aimed at their credibility. "She diverted funds meant for our children's college savings into dinners and romantic getaways, supposedly financed by a friend who was never really a friend at all." He could see the witnesses squirm as he surfaced details of Laura's lavish spending, revealing the betrayal for all to witness. Dressed in crisp, expensive attire, Laura had any semblance of innocence stripped away by the cold calculus of Jake's revelations. She maintained a defiant posture, but the cracks in her facade deepened, exposing a woman caught in her own trap. "Mark!" Jake turned swiftly, addressing the traitorous figure across the room. "You stand beside her, and for what? For a few stolen moments of joy?" Jake leaned forward, calculated fury emanating from every pore. "You've lost everything, too. Your career, respect, and your former friendships disintegrate with every word I speak." Mark's previously unyielding confidence dissolved. Jake reveled in the shift, the palpable defeat that radiated from his former ally. "Remember, once the truth exposed, there's no going back. You wanted to play with fire, and now the flames are consuming you both." After what felt like an eternity, it was time for Laura to respond. Her lawyer attempted to reinstate some semblance of control, but Jake saw through the thin veneer of legal defense and despair. "Laura, you have the chance to say your piece. How do you explain the manipulation and the lies?" He set up the moment like an actor handing her the stage. Taking a shaky breath, Laura finally spoke, her voice somewhat unsteady. "Jake, Stop right there," he interrupted, his anger peeling away the last threads of her defenses. "You can't just apologize. You have broken what we built. There is no fixing this." As her attorney stumbled through a poorly constructed narrative of misunderstanding, Jake could see that the jury was turning against her too. Their faces bore signs of disbelief as they absorbed the implications of what had transpired. Jake seized the moment, fortifying his stance. "You can see the deception laid bare right in front of you. This isn't personal. It's business. This is a reckoning of consequence. For every lie told, for every theft of trust." He felt a surge within him, a raw energy coursing as he prepared for this pivotal moment. "I'm not interested in your apologies. You've had enough time to reflect on how you've ruined our family. The only goal here is justice for what was taken from me, from our children." He leaned into the judge, preparing for the final nail in Laura's proverbial coffin. "I am requesting full custody of our children and an equitable division of our finances, excluding any of the clandestine expenditures which will be documented in detail for the court." Everyone in the room shifted, eyes narrowing as they processed the weight of Jake's words. There was no turning back now. This was his moment, not just for revenge, but for self-empowerment. When it was time for the judge to make her statements, her tone was serious, reflecting the gravity of the situation. "We will conduct a thorough review of all evidence presented. The court recognizes the emotional turmoil faced by both parties, but emphasizes the necessity for accountability." The gavel came down like a hammer, the sound reverberating across the tense atmosphere. "I believe this court requires some time to reach its decision regarding custody and assets." As the courtroom emptied, Jake's heart raced with the surge of adrenaline as he embraced the victory of taking back control, a feeling he had long been denied. He reveled in the sensation of righteous correctness as he stepped outside into the crisp air. But even as he stepped forward into his newfound freedom, he understood that the battle wasn't over. There would be many more long nights, infinite paperwork, and emotional tumult as the dust settled. Yet victory was inching closer. It wasn't just about crippling his betrayers, it was a broader statement about resilience. 1 week later, Jake received the judgment letter from the court outlining the custody terms. The children would remain in his primary care, and Laura was to pay substantial support. The moment he read it, a euphoric wave washed over him. But the thrill of a momentary victory had an edge, that it wasn't over until he fully dismantled the remnants of her betrayal. Jake was ready with his next move. Social media was a blaring avenue to make public the consequences of infidelity, and he was determined not to let it pass quietly. It was time to tell his story, and as he typed out each post, the cathartic act was as essential for his healing as any verdict. With unrelenting resolve, Jake recorded each moment, the lies, the confrontation, the courtroom battle, and the verdict, laying the foundation for a platform that would shed light on how deceit would not only be socially unacceptable, but utterly void of consequence. This was about more than just revenge. It was about setting the stage for his transformation, a beacon of strength for others seeking to reclaim their lives. And even as he faced the wreckage of love lost, he knew he could rise from the ashes, not just as a survivor, but a victor ready to take back everything she tried to steal from him. In one furious stroke, Jake had transformed his pain into purpose, relentless in pursuit of clarity, justice, and ultimately, his own peace. Jake's determination grew with each passing day. He had turned the pain of betrayal into a mission, one that would not only reclaim his life, but also pave the way for others trapped in similar situations. He began drafting a blog, a chronicle of his story that would expose the toxic behaviors of infidelity and highlight the importance of staying vigilant in relationships. The title he chose? Strength from Betrayal. He poured himself into writing, detailing the raw, unfiltered emotions he faced. Pain, anger, humiliation, and ultimately, empowerment, spilled from his fingertips onto the keyboard. Each post resonated with a broader audience that had once felt alone in their struggles, a community he was unknowingly building brick by brick. In his first post, Jake wrote about the initial shock and disbelief that accompanied the discovery of Laura's betrayal. He didn't hold back, describing the numbness that wrapped around him when he realized the life he had worked tirelessly to construct was nothing but a facade crumbling at his feet. The comments poured in, reflective of his readers' own heartbreak and betrayal. People shared their own stories, resonating with the pain he eloquently captured. The stories of vulnerability, fidelity, and the fight to reclaim dignity. As his posts gained traction, Jake found himself receiving emails from emerging writers and advocates who wanted to collaborate on the theme of social justice surrounding infidelity and family law. He realized quickly that his experience was not isolated. It was part of a greater tapestry woven with threads of resilience and reclaimed power. Through his blog, he began showcasing the importance of financial independence, encouraging people to maintain transparency in relationships, especially concerning joint finances. His content resonated particularly with women who found themselves victimized in similar situations. It was empowering for both men and women. His voice became one of reason among stormy seas of doubt. Meanwhile, as Laura's public persona crumbled, Jake continued to expose the reality she had crafted. Friends and acquaintances who once stood by her began to distance themselves further as they read his posts. Jake found satisfaction in indirectly revealing the truth. There were consequences to betrayal, even if they took time to surface. With every post, Jake felt lighter. The weight of his heartbreak was slowly transforming into a source of strength. The community of supporters and fellow survivors rallied around him, amplifying his voice while teaching him they were not simply stories. They were people, fighting to reclaim their lives. The comments section became a sanctuary, a gathering place where stories of resilience flourished, flourishing like wildflowers through cracks in concrete. One day, as Jake prepared to finalize his latest post, the phone buzzed with an incoming text. It was a message from an unknown number. "Jake, it's Laura," it read. "I know I've caused you immense pain, but I want to speak with you." "Can we meet?" His reaction was immediate. a swell of anger accompanied by a wave of disbelief. Why now? After everything that had happened and the way she had played him for a fool, why was she suddenly asking for a conversation? The very thought of facing her stirred a tumult of emotions. Wouldn't meeting her just reopen festering wounds? He took a moment to breathe, contemplating whether to respond. Curiosity gnawed at him, but the desire for closure began to rise above the anger. On the other hand, he questioned whether she had any right to confront him after her actions had obliterated their partnership. However, he felt a slight flicker of control. This was his life, and he would choose the terms of any engagement. Finally, he typed back, "What do you want to discuss?" Her reply came swiftly, laden with an apologetic tone. "I know I've messed up everything, Jake. I've been in a dark place and realized how awful I've been. Can we meet so I can apologize in person?" Jake's resolve softened just a bit. Maybe understanding her reasoning could provide a sense of closure he hadn't yet attained. He felt a combination of trepidation and determination surging through him, and after mulling it over, he decided to meet her. When they sat down at a local cafe, a neutral ground, Jake's emotions flared anew. Laura arrived looking different. Her once familiar confidence had crumbled into a shadow of despair. The regret etched on her face was explicit as she eyed him from across the small table. "Thank you for meeting me," she started, fidgeting with her coffee cup. He could see the pent-up pain she had carried. "You've had a lot of time to reflect, haven't you?" Jake replied bluntly, folding his arms across his chest. He felt the urge to unleash the full weight of his frustration, but he chose to rein in the oncoming storm of pent-up resentment. "Jake, I don't expect forgiveness." "I don't even deserve it," she muttered, her voice barely above a whisper. "I just wanted to say that I'm sorry for everything. I was selfish, and I hurt you in ways I can't even imagine." "Words are just words, Laura," Jake interrupted, attempting to maintain control over the conversation. "Sorry doesn't fix the trust you shattered or the betrayal you orchestrated." She looked pallid and aged beyond her years. Something in her had cracked. "I lost so much. My friends, my reputation, even Mark. He left me the moment he realized the fallout had begun. I've been alone in the aftermath, and I finally see what I had." Her vulnerability seeped through like water through a sieve, and for a fleeting moment, Jake contemplated her situation, though he immediately reminded himself of the wounds she'd inflicted upon him. "I didn't come here for a sob story, Laura. You made your choices and they meant something definitive. I lost faith in you." Tears gathered in her eyes, and he could see ethereal reflections of their former life, now buried beneath the wreckage of her decisions. "You're right. I've lost everything and came here hoping for something. For what? A reconciliation? A chance to start over?" Jake leaned back, eyes narrowing. He felt nothing but a smoldering pit of resentment forming deep within him. "I want to take accountability," she implored, her voice steadying. "I just want to say I'm not that person anymore. I regret everything that broke us apart." Jake shook his head, feeling exhausted, as if he'd just run a marathon of emotions. "You can't undo the past, Laura. Regret doesn't fix the pain you caused." As they sat in silence, the weight of the encounters hung thick in the air, laced with difficult truths. While considering his own healing process, he finally realized something important. He didn't need her validation to move forward. "I thank you for your honesty, but I won't allow you back into my life. Not after what you did. I've built a life without you and am now embracing a future without your shadows." The decision felt right. Jake recognized this was about seizing control, not just of his present, but also of his future. The rage he once harbored had morphed into purpose with every passing moment. "Jake, please," Laura whispered, a sob breaking her voice. "Don't. Just don't. I've put my faith in you before, and I refuse to let you manipulate me again," he said firmly, rising from his seat, his heart racing in rhythmic defiance as he began to walk away. Each step he took felt like liberation, and as he left the cafe, he turned back to give her a final glance. one that told her everything she needed to hear. It was over. Feeling the weight of power settle in his chest, Jake walked home with renewed energy and a sense of freedom. He now understood that the closure he sought would not come from forgiving Laura, but from acknowledging his own journey towards self-love and respect. He would let her story be hers. His story was about reclaiming his life, stepping boldly into a future he could mold while standing tall against the shadows of his past. In that realization, he understood the real triumph wasn't about vengeance. It was about fortifying his spirit for a future filled with trust, loyalty, and above all, a return to authenticity. He had finally become the architect of his own destiny, ready to face whatever lay ahead. Jake's heart raced as he walked away from the cafe, each step bolstering his sense of purpose. The echoes of Laura's hollow apologies floated away behind him, left to drown in the wreckage of their past. He was ready to embrace life anew, free from the chains of betrayal and regret. Upon arriving home, Jake was greeted by the lively chaos that came with parenting. His children burst into the room, full of laughter and energy, their innocence a stark contrast to the turmoil he'd just experienced. He knelt down to hug them tightly, inhaling the familiar sense of crayons and youthful exuberance. This warmth grounded him, reminding him that despite the heartache, he would always have a reason to fight, to provide them with a stable, loving environment. As the days turned into weeks, Jake threw himself into his work, his blog, and most importantly, his role as a father. He prioritized every moment spent with his kids, dedicated weekends to family adventures, trampoline parks, and camping trips. These experiences allowed him to focus on the joy of fatherhood while creating a buffer against the chaos that once consumed his life. His children thrived in the secure atmosphere he had reconstructed around them, a world colored by laughter and filled with the absence of deceit. The blog began to flourish, resulting in a rapidly growing readership. Jake's honesty about his experiences resonated with countless individuals reeling from betrayal, and they flooded his comments section with stories of their own. A sense of community bloomed, a network of survivors who found solace in shared adversity. With each new post, he highlighted lessons learned and solutions forged from grief. He provided advice on safeguarding one's financial independence, maintaining clear communication in relationships, and being vigilant against betrayal. Readers began reaching out for more than just a digital connection. Some asked for advice on navigating their own tumultuous situations, while others expressed a desire to meet in person for support groups. This was an unexpected turn, but Jake felt compelled to facilitate these discussions. After several weeks of digital exchanges and planning, he organized a small local meetup at a community center. He envisioned it as a safe space where people could come together, share their experiences, and gain strength through their collective experiences. He advertised it through his blog and local social platforms. When the day of the meeting arrived, Jake was both nervous and excited. He had no idea how many people would show up and whether he could facilitate meaningful conversation. He set up the room with rows of chairs, a modest table with refreshments, and a banner with his blog's name printed boldly on it. As attendees began to trickle in, he felt a rush of adrenaline. Some people were familiar with his story from reading his blog, while others were newcomers searching for solidarity. Each face told a narrative of heartache and resilience. Jake welcomed everyone warmly, creating a friendly atmosphere. Thank you for coming. This space is ours to navigate the challenges we face together. Trust was broken nationally by our partners, but we can rebuild it within our community. As he spoke, he could see the weight of isolation lift from many of their shoulders. Several participants bravely shared their stories, narratives filled with pain, disbelief, and ultimately, the drive to reclaim their lives. Among them was Sarah, a woman in her 30s, who shared how her husband had betrayed her trust with a close friend. The agony on her face was evident, and Jake could see the tears welling in her eyes as she recounted the event. I had trusted them both for years, and then, just like that, they chose each other over me, she explained, voice trembling. It's like I never meant anything to either of them. Jake leaned in, offering her words of encouragement. "You're not alone, Sarah. Look around you. Every one of us here shares a piece of that burden. We're here to lift each other up." As more stories poured out, Jake felt an overwhelming surge of camaraderie, a unity forged in shared suffering. Genuinely challenging moments weaved into raw yet necessary conversations. Techniques to restore self-worth emerged naturally, suggesting new affirmations, approaches to personal growth, and resources to seek out during difficult times. By the end of the meeting, several attendees lingered, chatting amongst themselves and exchanging contact information. Jake felt a wave of gratitude wash over him. The event had exceeded his expectations. Together, they had created a harbor of support that would last beyond that single meeting. In the following months, Jake continued these gatherings, turning them into a monthly tradition. Each meeting became a reaffirmation for the attendees, transforming shared pain into shared strength. They laughed, cried, and together found pathways to healing amidst harrowing circumstances. As his life flourished, so did Jake's notoriety as an advocate for emotional and financial independence. His blog turned into a haven for those who had experienced betrayals, becoming known as a trustworthy resource, filled with practical advice and personal stories. Then one day, as Jake sifted through emails, he stumbled upon a message that knocked the breath from his lungs. It was from Laura. "Jake, I know I've made terrible mistakes," she began, her words conveying a sense of measured remorse. "I watched you rebuild your life from a distance, and it instilled a deep sense of regret in me. I never realized the hurt I caused, and I'm genuinely sorry. I wish I could turn back time." He felt a surge of emotion as memories flooded his mind. Happy moments and heart-wrenching betrayal. But most importantly, there was an understanding that these reflections only reminded him how far he had come since that day in the cafe. He would not allow her words to disrupt his newfound sense of power. With a deep breath, Jake took a moment to compose his thoughts. Instead of rage or an emotional eruption, he opted for clarity. He responded decisively but compassionately. "Laura, I appreciate you reaching out, but my life is no longer intertwined with yours. Forgiveness doesn't mean allowing someone back into my life. I wish you the best, but I need to focus on my own family and the community I've built." As he hit send, a profound sense of relief washed over him. He had deflected the emotional turbulence of that anchored past, steering it into resolute control of his present and future. This was not just a testament to survival, but an assertion of power in its full glory. A declaration of independence cultivated from adversity and betrayal's bitterness. His journey was far from over, yet it was solidified by the knowledge that he was moving forward, step by deliberate step, as the architect of a new reality. Standing on the precipice of what lay ahead, living out loud, fierce, in vulnerability, and ready for whatever challenges life would present him, he was free. He was finally whole. Life continued to unfold for Jake in a new rhythm, one that pulsed with resilience and the promise of brighter days. He had carved out a fresh identity as a dedicated father, a community advocate, and a burgeoning voice for those navigating the murky waters of betrayal. As he balanced work, parenting, and his blog activities, he felt a renewed sense of purpose that intoxicated him more than any fleeting romance ever could. Despite the progress, there were still challenging days. Some moments tugged at old wounds. His heart would whisper reminders of Laura's betrayal. But they were faint echoes now, reminders of a past he no longer allowed to define his present. The therapy sessions he'd embraced had equipped him with tools to navigate these emotional waves, and he applied grounding techniques whenever doubts surfaced. He was learning to separate his identity from the wounds inflicted by others. One rainy afternoon, after wrapping up a particularly intense group meeting about financial literacy and emotional well-being, Jake received a message from Sarah, one of the participants who had become a close friend through their shared journey. "Hey Jake, can we meet? I have something important I want to discuss," the message read. Jake felt a brief flicker of concern, Their meetings had always focused around support, so the notion of something important sparked his curiosity. He quickly replied, suggesting they meet at their usual cafe, a cozy spot bustling with warmth and familiarity. When they sat across from each other, Jake noticed a different energy in Sarah. Normally vibrant and energetic, she wore an expression tinged with a mix of excitement and apprehension. "Thanks for meeting me," she began, a smile creeping onto her lips. "I've been working on something since we last spoke. It's a project I'm passionate about, and I believe it could really help people impacted by infidelity." Jake shifted, intrigued. "What do you have in mind?" Sarah took a deep breath, her eyes glistening with determination. "I want to launch a foundation, something that focuses on providing emotional and financial support for individuals who have experienced betrayal. From therapy resources to legal advice, even job training for those who might feel stranded after their relationship ends." Jake's excitement swelled. "That sounds incredible. There's such a need for that kind of support," he replied, enthusiasm igniting his voice. "I'd love to help in any way I can." As they brainstormed, ideas poured out in a creative torrent that felt invigorating. They discussed outreach strategies, community partnerships, and how to leverage Jake's blog following to amplify their message. The goal was to create not just a support network, but a beacon of hope for those wrestling with the emotional scars of betrayal and infidelity. "That's exactly what I was envisioning," Sarah said, her confidence bolstered by Jake's endorsement. "Something beyond just personal stories, an initiative where people can come together and heal in more tangible ways." Before they parted, they solidified plans to launch a website, design outreach programs, and formulate actionable resources for their foundation. This endeavor shifted something fundamental inside Jake, filling him with renewed vigor. This was more than just healing his own wounds. It would be a way to empower and uplift countless others who shared similar stories. Over the next few months, Jake and Sarah poured their hearts into the foundation. Their collaborative efforts took off like wildfire, and in no time, they found themselves in the spotlight. Press articles featured their initiative, highlighting their commitment to addressing the scars left by infidelity and betrayal. Community members rallied around the cause, contributing time, money, and resources, all sparked by the idea of healing. Every successful meeting, every shared story, resonated with purpose as they laid the foundation for something monumental. Their dream grew from an idea at a cafe into a living testament of resilience. They organized workshops for emotional healing, informed seminars on financial independence, and networking events that brought together like-minded individuals seeking recovery and rebuilding. Word spread rapidly. Survivors began attending their events, connecting over shared experiences, breaking down walls of isolation. At each gathering, Jake observed hope flickering in participants' eyes, a spark that had been extinguished by betrayal, slowly reigniting within them. He thrived in these moments, recognizing the impact of their mission in real time. People were reclaiming their agency, and Jake found pride in being part of assisting that journey. Yet, amid the whirlwind of activity, Jake remained attuned to the ground beneath him. He didn't want to lose sight of what had brought him here, his children. He was determined to be the father they deserved, the rock they could depend on. One weekend, he decided to take them on an adventure, a surprise trip to the beach. He rented a cozy cabin overlooking the ocean, ensuring they could wander freely in the sun and sand. The joy lighting up his children's faces as they embarked on this impromptu journey filled Jake with a sense of peace he had long sought. As they splashed in the waves and built elaborate sandcastles, Jake felt the burdens of the past lifting. This was what life was meant to be: simple, exhilarating moments filled with laughter and connection. He reveled in their excitement, pushing himself into the water alongside them. For those hours, nothing mattered beyond the joy shared among them. That night, as he lay on the deck beneath a sky flickering with stars, Jake felt a profound sense of gratitude. Gratitude for the journey, the excruciating pain that had transformed him, the new friendships forged in the fire of shared experiences, and the chance at serenity with his kids. But the winds of change also serve as a reminder to remain vigilant. The following week marked an anniversary of sorts, the day Laura had sent that first email expressing her regrets. As the date approached, Jake felt a swirl of mixed emotions spin within him. In a decision rooted in closure, he chose to write a final letter to Laura, one that would articulate his journey and the lessons gleaned from their time together. "Dear Laura," he began, his hand steady over the paper. "It's been months since we last spoke. This letter is not about anger or blame. Instead, it's about acceptance and the choices we've both made. While our paths diverged into painful territories, I have still learned valuable lessons." He outlined how her betrayal had illuminated the importance of loving oneself first. He mentioned the foundation and its promise to help others find their footing and heal. Most importantly, he expressed his hope that Laura, too, would find her path in the wake of their choices. He concluded, "I wish you growth on your journey and trust you'll embrace the possibility of healing and change. Goodbye, Laura." As Jake sealed the envelope, a wave of relief washed over him. This letter was no longer about her. This was about him reclaiming the narrative of his story. It would be sent not for her sake, but for his own, allowing room in his heart to navigate forward without the weight of her past dragging him down. In the weeks following, Jake noticed profound shifts within himself, a transformation that continued to unfold through his work, parenting, and relationships. He remained committed to the foundation, watching as it flourished into an embodiment of hope and healing. But beyond that, he felt an ever-growing understanding of what it meant to wield his own power and create a life that resonated with joy, integrity, and authenticity. Each new day was a brushstroke in the vivid tapestry of his life, a reality shaped by each moment of resilience, every laugh shared with his children, and each person in the community empowered through shared experiences. He had walked through the fire of betrayal and emerged on full display, not as a victim, but as a survivor. His journey became a celebration of strength and purpose. He remained dedicated to building a brighter future, one day at a time. And as he gazed at the horizon, the unwavering belief in his capacity to shape his own destiny flourished, unwavering and resolute. Here stood Jake Thompson, rebuilt and renewed, ever ready to embrace whatever awaited ahead. As the months rolled on, Jake's foundation began to solidify its presence, not only in the local community, but also in the wider landscape of organizations addressing infidelity and relationship recovery. People from various walks of life reached out, captivated by the stories of resilience refracted through Jake's efforts and those of his co-founders. They wanted to share their experiences, contribute to the mission, and help others reclaim their lives just as Jake had done. Jake felt proud watching the foundation blossom. It felt both like a tribute to what he and others had endured and a gift to those still grappling with their realities. Each workshop cultivated a fertile ground for healing, bringing together individuals struggling with feelings of inadequacy, doubt, and loss of identity due to their experiences. However, the workload was heavy, often consuming Jake's evenings and weekends. He balanced this with his commitment as a father, fine-tuning his calendar with work projects and kids' soccer games. Yet, amid the whirlwind, he remained vigilant, ensuring his focus never wavered from the two most important aspects of his life, his children and their well-being. One afternoon after the kids returned from school, Jake noticed a shift in their demeanor. His 8-year-old daughter, Lily, seemed withdrawn, and his 6-year-old son, Ben, was terse and not his usual buoyant self. They were quieter than normal, and the usual sparkle in Lily's eyes appeared dimmed. "Hey, guys," Jake said, kneeling to their level. "What's going on? You can talk to me, you know." Lily hesitated, her blue eyes glistening with unspilled tears. "I heard Mrs. Campbell tell another mom at school that she saw you with someone else. A woman. Do you have a new girlfriend?" The question landed like a cold splash of water. In an instant, Jake's heart sank. He hadn't considered how quickly rumors could circulate among children, and worse, how they might transform into concerns. "No, sweetheart, I don't have a girlfriend. You don't have to worry about anything like that," he assured them, seeking to eliminate their anxiety. "I'm focusing on you guys and making sure we have fun together. That's my priority." "But what if you meet someone?" Ben chimed in, visibly troubled. "What if she doesn't like us? What if she tries to take you away?" Jake took a breath, allowing himself a moment to navigate this tricky territory with compassion. "Listen, I know things have been different since everything that happened with your mom. But I love you both more than anything, and anyone who comes into my life is going to understand that you come first. You guys are my whole world." Lily looked unconvinced, and Jake felt the ache of her uncertainty pull at him. "Promise that no one can ever take us away," she pressed. "Promise," he replied firmly, wrapping both kids in a warm hug. "You will always be my priority, no matter what." With the promise held firmly in the air between them, Jake decided to delve deeper. It was imperative they understand the whole spectrum of emotions in a healthy family environment. "Let's talk about this more, okay? Tell me how you're feeling." They began to share their worries about the whisperings at school, their fears of being replaced, and the memories of their mother. As their thoughts spilled forth, Jake listened intently, his heart aching for the hurt they carried, knowing too well the weight of betrayal's aftermath. Utilizing this moment, he encouraged them to express their emotions freely, emphasizing that it was okay to feel hurt or afraid. "I want you to feel safe coming to me. You can tell me anything, and I'll always listen." After their conversation slowly receded into lighter topics and laughter, Jake found solace knowing he had established this line of communication. Connecting with his children remained paramount, and steering them through their emotional maze as they navigated their new family dynamic became crucial. Time marched forward, and the family continued to thrive within this new rhythm. Jake maintained the delicate balance, coaxing laughter out of his children, while remaining staunch in his advocacy work. But through the horizon lurked shifts that would soon reveal themselves, challenging the stability he had built. One sunny afternoon, Jake received an email that jolted him from the safety of his routine. It was a formal communication from Laura that made his heart race uncontrollably. "I hope this message finds you well. I understand this may come as a surprise, but I'm hoping we can discuss the possibility of adjusting the custody arrangements. I've had time to reflect, and I would like the opportunity to see the kids more regularly." Jake felt a surge of conflicting emotions, irritation, concern, and an avalanche of introspection. While he appreciated the sentiment of Laura wanting to engage with their children, he felt the need to tread carefully. This was not just about rekindling discussions, but also about ensuring that the children would remain shielded from further disruptions by the very person who had hurt them. He took time to collect his thoughts, knowing that this wasn't merely about his emotions, it was about their children's well-being. They had made strides emotionally following their last encounter, and the last thing he wanted was to introduce instability. He decided it was time to consult his lawyer, to weigh options carefully before responding. After a thorough discussion, they outlined the potential steps, including highlighting the importance of the kids' emotional and physical safety. Jake ultimately chose to reply tactfully, inviting Laura for a discussion regarding her request, while asserting that he would always prioritize their children's welfare. In the email, he set clear boundaries, specifying that while he was open to dialogue, any adjustments and arrangements needed to prioritize the well-being and stability of the children's life. Jake communicated that while he understood her desire to connect, it would be on the foundation of building trust and responsibility. Days passed as Jake awaited her response, each moment stretching out like a taut wire. Eventually, he received an acknowledgement of his terms, reflecting a willingness to engage in a conversation about the kids' safety and boundaries. That meeting loomed like a storm cloud. But after extensive contemplation and a commitment to maintain vigilant focus on what truly mattered, their children, Jake prepared himself for whatever lay ahead. On the day of the meeting, tensions crested as he stepped into the small conference room. He found Laura seated at the table, a hesitant look etched across her face. She hadn't changed much, yet there was something different about her, an air of vulnerability mingling with apprehension. "Thank you for agreeing to meet," she said softly, her eyes searching his for cues. "Let's get to the point." "You've asked for more time with the kids," Jake replied, deliberately keeping his tone neutral. "You need to understand the impact this could have on them." "I know. I don't want to disrupt their lives. I've been reflecting a lot, and I've realized how much I've hurt them. And you." She glanced down. "I'm truly sorry. I want to be a better mother." Jake felt a surge of skepticism toward her bold claims, but he reminded himself to stay composed. Trust takes time to build back. A few apologies alone won't restore what's been lost. "I get it," Laura said, determination mingling with remorse. "I won't rush things, but I miss them, Jake. I'm willing to work on myself." Jake wasn't convinced. He had to consider their children first and foremost. Let's outline a gradual approach. A couple of supervised visits initially, and we'll include consistent feedback from you, me, and the kid's therapist. They need to feel genuinely safe. Her reaction was subdued but sincere. "Thank you for being open to discussing this. I realize I don't deserve it, but I want to prove I can change." With that, he nodded, understanding this would be the first step in a long road ahead. They laid out a tentative plan and eventually parted with a begrudging respect, fragile and hesitant, but a start nonetheless. As he drove home, Jake felt a whirlwind of emotions racing. It had been a challenging encounter, yet somehow it also marked a new chapter. They were taking it one step at a time, but it reminded Jake of the immense importance of guarding their children's hearts while allowing for cautious progress. Change was possible. His focus returned to the kids, where grounded stability reigned. Every hard-fought moment, the encouraging laughter, shared hobbies, and moments of steely resolve paved the way for their emotional strength. With a renewed sense of purpose, Jake understood that life was far from linear. Each challenge had been a catalyst for transformation, not only for him, but for his children too. They were all growing together, and that mattered more than any lingering shadows of the past. In the heart of it all, he discovered the tenacity that life required and how embarking on the unknown still unfolded into limitless possibilities. Jake once again stood at the precipice, ready to embrace whatever lessons awaited him. As he closed the door to the evening behind him, the laughter rang through the house, a chorus of joy, punctuating what had grown to be a confident new life, one richly nourished by resilience, understanding, and the profound realization that love could indeed conquer all. The days that followed Jake's meeting with Laura were filled with a mixture of anticipation and trepidation. He and Laura had established a tentative framework for visitation that gave her limited access to the children, closely monitored by Jake and their therapist. He'd been nervous about how the kids would react to seeing Laura again. Memories of confusion, hurt, and betrayal were still vivid in their little minds, but he maintained an unwavering sense of optimism. With each brief interaction between Laura and the children, Jake watched closely, noting every change in their behavior. He was prepared for anxiety and apprehension to emerge, yet through each meeting, he saw glimpses of resilience. Lily and Ben remained cautious but curious. They had grown to understand that while people could make mistakes, that did not define their entire being. Jake facilitated the visits as smoothly as possible. He arranged outings in neutral settings, parks, ice cream shops, and family-friendly places that allowed the children to feel safe and relaxed. With each outing, he observed Laura's efforts to engage positively. It seemed as if she was genuinely trying to connect more meaningfully with her kids, while acknowledging the imprints of the past. "Mom, can we go to the swings?" Lily asked during one visit, glancing hesitantly at her mother, unsure of how to approach this new dynamic. "Of course, sweetie. Let's play," Laura replied with a warm smile, her enthusiasm dampened slightly by the awareness of her past mistakes. Jake watched them interact, feeling a sense of cautious optimism. He made sure to stay close enough to intervene if necessary, but part of him understood that growth would also require letting them experiment with their newfound relationship. As the swings creaked and groaned under their weight, Jake felt the fabric of their family evolve, stitching together fragmented ties, unfurling slowly into something familiar, yet newly vibrant. Over the next few weeks, the visits became regular fixtures in their lives, though it still required vigilance. Jake maintained open discussions with Lily and Ben about their feelings after each encounter. He encouraged them to express any concerns, thoughts, or questions, reinforcing that their emotions were valid and welcomed. "Dad, it felt weird at first, but I think I'd like having Mom around," Ben admitted during one dinner. "That's completely okay, buddy. It's normal to feel a bit strange about it. This whole thing is a big change for all of us," Jake reassured him, while silently marveling at how far they'd come since the collapse of their family as they once knew it. One afternoon, after a particularly good visit, Jake felt buoyed by a newfound strength. The cheerful laughter of his children filled the house as they quarreled over which movie to watch. With the warmth of familial love wrapping around him, he took a moment to sip his coffee and soak in the laughter. Life was settling into a new normal, one that felt healthier and more grounded. However, life has a way of throwing curveballs, and one fateful morning, Jake received an unexpected email from Laura, urging him to meet. "Can we talk? I need to discuss something important regarding the kids," her message read. Anxiety washed over him as he felt a knot clench in his stomach. This was uncharted territory. The precarious nature of their arrangements now swirled with uncertainty. Had something gone wrong, or was this about deepening their visitation? After consulting with his lawyer, Jake decided he'd meet Laura, but emphasized what he deemed necessary before they convened. "This conversation should focus solely on our children and their needs," he reiterated to her through a reply. When Jake arrived at the designated coffee shop, he found Laura already standing at their table, her face drawn and serious. Instead of the familiar smile he'd come to anticipate, she wore an expression that hinted at turmoil. "Thank you for meeting me," she said, clutching a cup of coffee with trembling hands. "I need to ask for your understanding. My job has called me to another state. I'll be relocating in 2 months, and I'm afraid I won't be able to see the kids as often." The news hit Jake like a cold wave. "You're moving?" he asked, trying to keep his voice steady. "What does that mean for the visitation plans we've established?" Laura took a moment, breathing deeply as if gathering courage. "Jake, I don't want to lose the progress we've made. I want to remain involved in their lives in any way that I can. I'll still come back for visits, and I'm willing to discuss any adjustments you think are necessary." "I only want what's best for the kids." Jake felt the weight of the situation settle heavily around him. On one hand, the idea of Laura relocating threatened to disrupt the fragile bond they had begun to rebuild. On the other, he recognized her sincerity, a spark of accountability candor he was relieved to witness. "I appreciate your honesty, Laura. I really do," he said cautiously, carefully weighing his words. "But I need to be clear that the stability of their lives comes first. Moving states might alter our arrangement completely, and I need to ensure they're not thrown into confusion again." "I understand," Laura nodded, her voice trembling. "I will do everything possible to make this work. I love them, and am dedicated to being their mother, no matter the distance." They spent the next hour outlining a potential framework for managing visitation amid the impending move. Jake proposed that they build a virtual schedule to maintain their connection through video chats, ensuring that Laura remained present in their lives despite the geographic boundaries. They also discussed how the kids could visit her during school breaks and summer vacations. Though it was bittersweet, Jake sensed an opportunity stemming from adversity. They were still navigating the rocky waters of co-parenting, but there was now a foundation rooted in open dialogue, accountability, and a shared commitment to their children's well-being. As Jake drove home, he mulled over the developments. His emotions dipped and surged between optimism and the familiar pull of anxiety. He had come to appreciate Laura's recent efforts, Yet the threat of change remained a looming concern. Would this move derail the progress they had made? Would this reintroduce instability into the lives of their children? These concerns resurfaced for Jake later that week, as he gathered with Lily and Ben for their regular family movie night. They sprawled out on the living room floor, popcorn crumbs scattered amidst the laughter and jovial chatter. Yet, as they selected which movie to watch, he couldn't shake off the heavy cloud of uncertainty that loomed. "Can we choose a family adventure movie?" Ben suggested enthusiastically, his eyes alight with excitement. "Absolutely. What about that one with the funny talking animals?" Jake prompted, trying to tap into their joy. As the film started rolling, he took in the warmth surrounding him. Laughter and giggles encircled the room, and his heart swelled with love for his children. In moments of shared happiness, nothing felt distant. The noise, the colors, the plot, all of it resonated. But deep down, Jake knew the path had not reached its final destination. There would always be new challenges to face, transitions to navigate, and moments to redefine what family meant to them. In the quiet moments following the movie, Jake turned to his children. "Hey, I know things are changing with Mom moving. I want you both to know we'll always get through everything together. No matter what, our family is still strong." Lily nodded, rolling her eyes teasingly. "We know, Dad. You're always here for us." "Yeah, you're the best. You make everything fun," Ben chimed in, a wide grin illuminating his young face. As they snuggled together on the couch, Jake felt a renewed sense of determination swell within him. It didn't matter what uncertainty lay ahead. He would face it head-on. He would continue to grow as a father, ensuring that the love they shared would buffer them against any storm. And while his past weighed heavily on his heart, he now had the tools, support, and commitment to navigate it all. The journey of healing was ongoing, but together, they would emerge stronger with each step forward. The promises were not born of fear, but of hope. In the days that followed, Jake found his purpose crystallizing as he managed the evolution of his family dynamically. With each milestone, they transformed their pain into strength. They were not just surviving, but thriving in the wake of adversity. And so, with unwavering resolve, he prepared for whatever awaited them, committed wholly to embracing the tangled tapestry of emotions, love, and forgiveness that would forever change the shape of their lives. The road to be traveled still stretched ahead, unfolding into a horizon brightened by the possibility of new beginnings, fortified by resilience, and united by love. As the weeks turned into months, Jake continued to navigate the unpredictable waters of co-parenting with Laura. Her impending move loomed over their interactions, casting a shadow while simultaneously fostering a newfound determination within Jake. He understood that change was both daunting and necessary. It often led to new opportunities, and they were all learning to adapt. Despite Laura's relocation, Jake committed to maintaining stability for Lily and Ben. He ensured they had regular video calls with their mom, encouraging them to share their daily lives, and he instilled in them a proactive approach to their new normal. He made it a point to discuss all their feelings openly, especially as they adjusted to seeing less of Laura in person. The children took turns showing her their school projects, reciting stories, and even demonstrating their latest dance moves before the camera. Each interaction a thread weaving their relationship tighter, despite physical distance. Still, Jake felt the weight of the impending change settle on his shoulders. He wrestled with the fear of potential upheaval in the children's emotional landscape. Would they struggle more with their connection to Laura, or would the new arrangements only strengthen their bond? Amidst the swirling uncertainty, life brought its own pleasant surprises. Following the foundation's growing momentum, Jake began collaborating with local therapists and counselors to expand their offerings. Together, they developed a monthly workshop series focusing on various emotions tied to divorce and betrayal, from grief to empowerment, ensuring for all participants that healing could be a communal journey rather than a solitary burden. This endeavor proved rewarding. More individuals began attending the workshops, including several who'd initially been skeptical. People who once sat in silence now shared cathartic stories, unlocking the door to their pain and ultimately embracing their healing. Then, one unexpectedly warm Saturday afternoon, an email arrived that shifted the Foundation's trajectory yet again. It was a message from a renowned psychologist who specialized in relationship trauma and recovery, expressing interest in collaborating. "I believe our combined efforts could create a significant impact on the lives of individuals who have faced betrayal," she wrote. Jake felt a surge of excitement as he read through the proposal. This recognition could elevate their work on a broader scale. He took quick action, rearranging his schedule to meet the psychologist, Dr. Emily Carter, 1 week later. During their meeting, they discussed the potential for running a series of workshops that incorporated therapeutic practices, couple sessions, and self-discovery activities. Emily was passionate, and her experience spoke volumes about the profound effects of guided healing. Jake felt optimistic. A partnership could help countless individuals who had suffered in silence to reclaim their voices. Together, we can create a safe space for people to explore their feelings and develop strategies to move forward, Emily emphasized during their conversation. The stigma associated with infidelity and emotional betrayal often prevents people from seeking help. It's our job to break down that barrier. Over the next few months, the collaboration flourished, transforming their workshops into community events filled with dynamic activities. They invited guest speakers who shared their personal stories of resilience, offered guided discussions, and created exercises designed to empower individuals to take ownership of their healing process. By now, Jake had moved into a leadership role, and the foundation started gaining attention community-wide. As he looked out at the faces of attendees sharing their journeys, tears, and laughter in equal measure, he recognized the healing process in its rawest form. The conversations that bubbled up among participants strengthened the sense of community, a place they could be vulnerable, honest, and authentic with each other, completely unfiltered. However, despite the burgeoning success of the foundation, Jake couldn't shake a feeling of emptiness that sometimes crept into his heart late at night. As pains of the past faded, he noticed a longing for companionship emerging. The days of dedicated brotherhood with friends felt filled but void. He hadn't dated since Laura's betrayal 6 months prior, focusing solely on rebuilding his family life and the foundation. One evening, after a particularly sweeping workshop that concluded with laughter and tears, Jake decided to browse through old photos from happier times, ones from days spent with Laura before everything collapsed. He couldn't help but recall the joy they once shared, and an insatiable ache began to stir inside. He missed that connection, a person to share his journey with, someone to build new memories. Does love exist after such betrayal? He pondered. As he flipped through pictures, memories of laughter on warm summer nights, whispered conversations, and shared dreams painted a picture he once dreamed of returning to. Jake pushed the thoughts aside, reminding himself of the importance of boundaries and reflection, but he couldn't deny the growing curiosity about rediscovering love. The following week, while volunteering at the foundation, he overheard a conversation between Sarah and Emily about an upcoming singles mixer organized to foster connections among local residents. Initially hesitant, Jake felt a pull inside him, a chance to engage with others in a new setting and perhaps meet someone truly extraordinary. "Jake, why don't you go?" Sarah encouraged, noticing the sparkle of hesitation in his eyes. "You deserve to explore these feelings. It could be a good way to connect socially. Plus, you'll never know until you try." After some internal debate, he ultimately signed up for the event. As the date approached, nerves buzzed in his stomach. He had worked hard to establish boundaries since Laura's betrayal, and the thought of entering the dating realm again felt simultaneously thrilling and terrifying. The evening arrived, and as he entered the vibrant venue, bustling with laughter and chatter, he observed the scene, tables filled with small groups of mingling participants. Jake felt a rush of excitement coupled with anxiety as he walked toward the bar. First time here? A friendly voice interrupted his thoughts. Jake turned to see a woman with a warm smile and kind eyes, the kind that seemed to draw people in effortlessly. Yeah, just thought I'd give it a try, he replied, attempting to find his footing. I'm Lisa, she introduced herself, extending a hand. Nice to meet someone brave enough to venture out. It's not always easy after, well, all that. Jake felt an immediate connection, their conversation flowing easily. They shared experiences, stories from their respective journeys, and their perspectives on moving forward. The ease with which they exchanged dialogue surprised him, alleviating so much of the tension he had anticipated. As the night progressed, he and Lisa continued to engage in captivating conversations, lingering laughter sprawling across the room as they explored shared interests, hobbies, and aspirations. They found common ground in their stories of resilience and personal growth, breaking down walls brick by brick with each insightful revelation. For the first time in a long while, Jake felt the warmth of genuine connection unravel within him. Moments stretched into hours, and he hadn't realized just how invigorating it felt to lean into vulnerability again. He shared his work at the foundation, though he kept some details vague, recognizing the importance of preserving privacy even when the conversation overflowed with intrigue. Just before the night ended, he felt a gentle nudge from Lisa. Jake, I really enjoyed spending time with you tonight. How about we do this again sometime? He smiled, a warmth surging within him that he hadn't felt in ages. I'd love that, he replied, relief cascading within him. As they exchanged numbers, Jake couldn't help but think that this could be a significant step, a chance to reclaim facets of love that had felt extinguished. He walked away lighter than he had felt in months. In the days that followed, Jake kept in touch with Lisa, their conversations blossoming into something genuinely promising. Their interactions were effortless, punctuated by humor and mutual respect. They discussed everything, including their journey through heartache and the scars they carried. Through video calls and coffee dates, Jake began re-exploring what it meant to forge a bond, eventually taking him by surprise. The ache of longing previously nestled within him transformed into excitement for this newfound friendship blossoming into something deeper. In the midst of this significant shift, Jake remained acutely aware of the importance of balance, keeping his children at the center while navigating new terrain. He began inviting Lily and Ben into the conversation, sharing that he would be seeing a friend more often. They initially felt caution but also intrigue, encouraging him with innocent questions and suggestions. Dad, we want to meet her, Ben exclaimed one day, his bright eyes sparkling with curiosity. All right, soon, but I want to make sure the time feels right, Jake chuckled, grateful for their encouraging enthusiasm. In this delicate dance of rediscovery, Jake learned how to integrate love into the contours of a heart that had once been fractured but now craved wholeness. As he embraced this new chapter, he realized that love could always find its way back in, igniting hope at the heart of resilience. With every moment passed with Lisa, she became intertwined in his unfolding narrative, weaving a vibrant tapestry filled with shared laughter, compassion, and understanding, an evolving direction he hadn't dared to imagine just months prior. Amid the complexities of transitioning relationships, Jake understood that love's journey wouldn't always unfold seamlessly, but he was ready to cultivate a future rich with possibility. Life, after all, had become emblematic of resilience, love, and the unwavering strength found in the bonds he chose to create. As he embraced this new path, illuminated by hope, he prepared for whatever challenges awaited him, buoyed by the knowledge that he had made it through stormy seas and was capable of weathering any tempest ahead. Together with his children, colleagues, and blossoming connection with Lisa, he was ready to forge ahead, redefining love and family one step at a time.